Hello and welcome to everyone to the latest Blueburra webinar, Composing a Masterpiece. How composable architecture can take your online store to the next level. Maybe you've heard terms like composable and headless when talking about online commerce, but don't really understand what they mean or how they could benefit your business. It can feel like those using these technologies want to keep it a trade secret, but don't stress. We're here to peel back the curtains and take a look into how Blueburra helped Baby Bunting switch to composable commerce architecture, transforming the way Baby Bunting manage and deliver their e-commerce and digital experiences. The Blueburra and Baby Bunting teams have worked together since 2019, creating a more agile, flexible, and overall effective website and commerce technology architecture for Australia's largest specialty baby goods retailer. This forward-thinking strategy has transformed Baby Bunting's website from a monolithic platform which was increasingly difficult to support, maintain, and improve, to a modern, scalable architecture that increased business agility, shifted investment from infrastructure to customer service, and resulted in a greater agility and faster time to market for new experiences and features. In our webinar today, you will hear from Baby Bunting's General Manager of Digital, Rod Williams, discussing how composable architecture and headless CMS technology improved the Baby Bunting online experience. You'll also hear from Blueburra's Managing Director, Bas de Kort, when we'll walk you through how these technologies were implemented into Baby Bunting's new digital architecture. Okay, so let's get into introducing the speakers. Our first speaker today is Rod Williams. He's an experienced e-commerce and digital transformation leader who has led the adoption of new innovative technologies and ways of working to transform Baby Bunting's online channel and customer experiences. Rod has been recognized in the Inside Retail Top 50 People in e-commerce in 2021 and 2022. He is a passionate advocate for changing the way organizations approach businesses through a practical use of technology and data. So we'll dive straight into his presentation starting now. Welcome, Rod.
Composable commerce architecture here at Baby Bunting. So to start with, I guess, I just wanted to give you a bit of background to Baby Bunting, but really answer the question of why composable commerce made sense for us and why did we embark on this journey. So born in Melbourne and now over 40 years old, Baby Bunting is Australia's largest specialty retailer of baby goods. We've got 65 stores in Australia. We're really excited to be opening our first store in New Zealand next month, and our online channel services both our Australia and New Zealand market. And we're also a diverse business. We're not just products. We've got a huge range of services as well that are available to our customers, and we also offer extensive, service, support, and advice. So in the last 2 years, like many retailers, COVID's driven some lasting changes to how customers are engaged with us as a retailer and engage online. And like many of you, we've seen our online channel grow up really quickly. Our online sales have gone from 11.9% of our total sales pre-COVID and up to December last year for the first half of FY22, that had doubled to 23.8%. We've got around 30 million visits to our website every year. And behind all this growth, what we were facing is we were rapidly outgrowing our aging e-commerce platform. And that was implemented more than a decade ago. And the challenge was, it had served us well for many years, but over time, as that aged and reached end of life, the resources and investment to continue to operate and scale that platform increased and effectively reduced our agility to be improving our online customer experience. And the focus had turned to, back end, keeping it secure and keeping it scaled, which was quite intensive. And then we're facing this glass ceiling around improving our customer experience, where great ideas would face technical impediments and huge time and cost to bring to life working on that old platform. So that commerce platform that enabled our growth has then become this risk and constraint. And so we knew we had to do something about that. There have been some prior attempts in Baby Bunting to move off that e-commerce platform, and we've taken a more traditional approach of moving from monolithic platform A to monolithic platform B. And that hadn't been successful for us. So in 2020, this opportunity was born to really look at, how do we go about doing this in a way that embraces modern tech, embraces modern architecture, and really was suitable to meet our future requirements and not just the requirements that we had in 2020. And that's where a composable architecture and a headless architecture started to make sense for us. To recap, the why there. Firstly, we were already pushing the scope of I guess, a traditional kind of e-commerce solution, and we knew our growing range of services like car seat installation, where we wanted to take our gift registry offer, and also our strategic objectives meant that as we looked and we did go to market and look at those monolithic or kind of all-in-one solutions, there just wasn't a single brand or solution there that could do everything we needed and everything we wanted to do. And through a composable architecture, we felt really strongly that we could start to bring together best of breed providers in a way to some common standards and give us the ability to not only meet our needs today, but begin to extend that architecture to support future business requirements. Our second challenge was we were suffering from a lack of agility and very slow velocity of how we were making changes to our customer experience. And as I said, we felt we were really constrained, and COVID really enforced that it was difficult to bring changes to life in the time we needed to for our customers, just because of some of those technical impediments, that things took longer and cost more money than they needed to. And then third, this idea of composable architecture and market principles actually were a really good fit for our own strategic technology principles. Cloud first, API first, these have been our priorities at Baby Bunting for a number of years, and we've already invested significantly in a services-oriented architecture. And so it meant that we were really open to bringing this architecture to our digital commerce landscape, and it was really an extension of what we were already doing in the rest of our business. I'll just move on now and just kind of focus more on those benefits and what we've seen out of that journey. So to recap kind of the timeline, we started implementation early in 2021. We went live in around 4 months with an MVP in our New Zealand online business. And then in January this year, we launched that to our Australian business and retired our legacy solution. I'll touch on your flexibility, agility, and longevity here, because that's really where we see the benefits boiling down to for us. And we're still on the journey. The benefits still present themselves differently as we encounter different opportunities in our business, and we bring to life different aspects of our strategy. But around flexibility for us, and the benefit is clearly less lock-in and a reduced key vendor risk. Previously, when we're taking that monolithic approach, you're putting all of your investment and all of your trust into one partner and desperately hoping that roadmap is going to align to your business needs, but you're very much locked into looking to that one brand and logo. And I always think about this flexibility with this cycling analogy, and I do love to get out on my bike. And recently I bought a new mountain bike, and it's a giant, mountain bike. But most bike manufacturers, even if you're the global leader like Giant is in cycling, they don't make all components of their bikes. They don't make the suspension. The suspension of my bike is made by RockShox. They don't make the gears and brakes. They're Shimano because they do it well. And I wouldn't buy a bike without those brands and components, and Giant wouldn't make them. And I go back to, why should our commerce technology be any different? Is one logo on one provider able to do everything well? Secondly, around agility. For us, as I said, we want to move fast and be able to deliver on our strategy more rapidly and at scale. And for us, it's all about the customer experience. And as I said, on the monolithic platform that was end of life, we were seeing that a lot of time and energy was going into the back end that we wanted to shift to that front end. Through a composable commerce architecture, what we're seeing is we've been able to separate, each of those components and the front and the back end development cycles, and improve the velocity of how we can deliver those changes, whether they are back end and extending our architecture to new systems, or improving our front end CX. I would note that does require you to start to rethink, how do you structure your teams? How do you restructure your DevOps to bring that to life, and that multimodal development of different components, different products, and different and that front end, back end separation. And that's an evolution for us, shifting our team towards that, and also adapting it to where our priorities sit and where we want to invest. And that will, differ, quarter on quarter or month on month to back end versus front end. We've got that flexibility. And then lastly, longevity is a really key one for us, and in terms of the benefits. And I see, by moving to this composable commerce architecture, we're not waiting for the next big re-platform or end of life event, or knowing we've outgrown the solution that we spent so much time and money investing in and migrating to. And I think everyone's been through this, doing an e-commerce re-platform. It's not an insignificant event. It's a significant one-off investment of cost. It's a huge investment of your time. And ultimately, it consumes your best team for the better part of 12 months, at least, to go on that journey and re-platform again. And to me, that's not something you want to plan for. And with our composable commerce architecture, when we want to do something new, when that new opportunity arises, it introduces multiple options on how you introduce that without throwing out the entire solution and starting again. But also, if any of those components of your architecture along the way are no longer meeting your needs, something better has come along, you've got this opportunity to start to swap out those components without the huge time, cost investment, and without having to re-architect. We're already seeing that as we look to extend our architecture to support our future strategy, that there's a really seamless integration path to introduce that new functionality and introduce new systems along the way. And at the same time, from a longevity perspective, these solutions are not sitting still. Everything in this architecture is as a service. And we've seen each of those vendors is continually bringing us a roadmap that is best of breed of what they do. It may be search and merch, it may be commerce, it might be order management. And that is a real benefit to us at Baby Bunting, in that we're able to easily consume and get value from those individual roadmaps that are all best of breed. And I'll recap and just kind of finish up talking about a couple of lessons learned. First of all, don't do headless for headless sake. And I think it's fair to say it's become a big buzzword in the last couple of years. But I'd challenge you all to be clear on why headless is the right fit for your organisation, your strategy, and your team. All-in-one solutions will work well for many retailers who can be flexible with your requirements and want to scale quickly. But keep in mind, it's not just your requirements of today, and be sure that the requirements of tomorrow and next year can also be met with the same ease, and you're not going to confront that investment around re-platforming. 2, you need to shift your thinking. Headless introduces more moving parts, but significantly greater flexibility and options on how your requirements are met and future digital experiences are developed and maintained. The key is to avoid doing the new thing the old way and missing the benefits of moving to this modern composable architecture. Spend the time on your solution architecture and working out what platform plays what role, and critically examine how it will play nicely together. Not just technically can it work, but what does a day in the life look like for your teams in the future? And the reality is there may be more systems required to be used for some tasks, and tackle that head on. There might just be one login for every task and every user in your business. Third, the Mac Alliance has really been a guiding light for us to cut through the hype wave of headless that existed a few years ago and bring clear standards for platforms and integrators to design and build composable commerce in a way that's scalable, interoperable, and lowers the risk for retailers like Baby Bunting moving to these composable commerce architectures. What we've experienced is the Mac Alliance vendors are connected really closely together with this common purpose, and will roll up their sleeves and collaboratively work together to help solve problems for clients like Baby Bunting. And lastly, it's a journey. Break it down into milestones. For us, we reduce the technical risk by going live very early in a market where we knew we could validate the technology working, and learn how to operate and maintain it, and continually enhance that offer. And along the way, you've got to find a good partner that you're culturally aligned to, is working towards your North Star and is going to be with you every step of the way. And for us, Blueburra has been a great partner on this journey and continues to be so as we now focus on growing our customer experiences and extending our composable commerce architecture.
Thanks, Rod. Some really good insights there. We'll now straight away get into Bas. So let me introduce Bas. Bas de Kort has almost 20 years of experience working in internet and IT. This has gained him the ability to learn new technologies quickly, which he applies to a client base ranging from small businesses to large automotive and retail companies. His strong client engagement experience allows him to guide organizations to grow in new and emerging technologies by providing clear and translations to business needs, and support his clients and his colleagues to achieve new levels and coach them to become market leaders. So take it away, Bas. Thanks.
Right, thanks, Rodney. Yeah, first of all, I want to take a moment to really thank Baby Bunting and Rod for giving us the opportunity to work on like a full scale Mac architecture, helping their online shop go to the next level. And we've been throwing out a couple of these terms like Mac, and I would just want to spend a little bit of time talking through what it actually means and what it means as part of this greater composable commerce architecture. So Mac, the Mac stack is an integral part of the way to embrace the composable commerce architecture. The M stands for microservices, and those are individual pieces of business functionality that are independently developed, deployed, and managed. So it's really easy to introduce new features like that. Then the A is for API first. Every functionality of these platforms should be exposed through an API, which means you can create custom code that integrates with it, or you can make configuration and automate a lot of these systems. Then the C, cloud native. So cloud is often considered to be storage or hosting, but these software as a service vendors that produce these cloud native technologies really push it to the next level, including automatic scaling, updating. So you can always have the latest and greatest stuff coming through from them. And finally, the H for headless, which is the front end presentation that is decoupled from your backend. By saying that, you're basically disconnecting the interface to the world, the head, from whatever needs to be there to make the head work. So you make your head completely channel programming language or a framework agnostic, so you can reuse it and put it on new technologies. Now, a composable commerce architecture stack consists out of an ecosystem of several individual systems, and these systems are hosted, maintained, and improved by the respective vendors. Your goal here is to connect them all together and give birth to one cohesive platform. And this wouldn't be possible without APIs. So API-based stack is really important. And normally all these systems come with very strong APIs and great documentation, so your developers can really get going with them pretty easy. APIs nowadays are very much standardized into slightly easy to use technologies, so you can always get started with them pretty quickly for most developers. And then finally, the head in headless. So these systems are really set up to only provide you your business and your architecture and your backend systems. It's not set up to tell you how you use those systems to present it to the outside world. As indicated, you will be using the best of breed technologies here, and they are APIs. So what you can now do is really create a front end that is focused on UX and UI to achieve the best outcome for your business while using the best of breed technologies in the background by integrating these through these various technologies. Some of the learnings of this, though, is that you do have a lot of these technologies out there, and your internal users will have to work with all these technologies. So as Rod mentioned before, you have multiple systems and your team has to work in these. So it's really good to start thinking from the ground up what users do need access to what systems, who is going to configure it, who's going to maintain it. And that is really essential to not get your internal team overwhelmed. Then there's also a lot of choice. So there is these technologies keep growing and new technologies keep being added, well, almost on a daily basis. So it's really good to not get overwhelmed and make sure that you review the technologies that work well for you. And I'll go into a little bit more detail how to do this in the next slide. But yeah, it's essential that you can't review every piece of technology out there. You have to work with a trusted partner and use their guidance to get to some of these technology selections. And then finally, it's always a good idea to spend some time adopting a new solution, a piece of technology, and make sure that you review the technology before you commit to using it. This will help you establish a feel for the product and also brings your internal team on board with the new selection. And it will give everybody, including development, a better understanding of how these technologies work and how they can be part of the bigger architecture for your business. Now, to convince the business that headless architecture or a composable architecture is going to be beneficial, there's a couple of things you need to do. And I think the most important one we've done with Baby Bunting was doing a couple of proof of concept cycles in which you try to shortlist a best of breed solutions. There are a lot of technologies out there, like I mentioned before. So what you're trying to do is find the technologies that fit your business values and requirements. And then with those, you go to the next step. So you go into an analyze and score, where you go through all your business requirements and score the individual pieces of technology on their on those components to make sure that you pick the right one in the end. And then finally, and the most important part of it, once you've got a selection, is build a proof of concept using those. And it has to be a limited time investment MVP, so MVP, minimal viable product, where you bring them together and show the business how easily they are to connect and how strong of an outcome you can achieve in very limited amount of time. This will convince internal business, internal users, but also business stakeholders. Now, finally, we obviously have now been working with Baby Bunting for quite a while, and we've come up with this the composable commerce architecture. So what you see here is the various components that sit in a basic or in a commerce architecture. So you have your commerce engine. In this case, it's commerce tools. You got the CMS, that's content stack. For search and merge, constructor.io, authentication and ID management is Auth0, and those were the major components of the Baby Bunting system. Then there are a lot of peripheral systems. I've only indicated a couple, like you want to process payments, you want to do reviews, but there are many more as part of this system. These are all hosted, and they're all Mac stack technologies that that we integrate with APIs that have their own dashboards for business users and need to be configured and then brought together into a single application. In our case, we went with Vue Storefront, which is a hosted solution using the latest technologies from Vue.js and Nuxt.js. It's all hosted by Vue Storefront on their Google Cloud environments. So it's automatically scaled, so you don't need an infrastructure team to take care of that. And then finally, the thing that the business will build is all the customizations on top of these components. So you build the integrations that are not out of the box. Some of these integrations are out of the box. You build the custom styling, anything you can imagine that is not as much out of a box and not specific for all businesses. That's more specific for your business. So this is how we set up for Baby Bunting, and this is generally how often this works. Now, what can we do for you? So there are a couple of things we like to do, and what we've done for various businesses. One of them is do a health check. Have a look at your current platform, find pain points, and come up with some recommendation how to become ready for the future. Secondly, product selection. A couple of our clients that we've worked with, they are not ready to embrace a complete composable architecture yet, but they do want to introduce a new business feature in a composable way. What we do is we help with a product selection and set up a proof of concept, how this can integrate into our existing system. And then finally, which are the great fun projects, building a complete composable architecture from the ground up, in which we start from the beginning and guide you through every step, getting through the composable architecture. And I'll hand it back to Rodney for some Q&A.
Thanks, Bas. I'll just bring Rod and myself back to the front. If we could just turn our cameras back on and our mutes. Yep. Yeah, thanks for that, Rod. I like your little comment. Don't do headless for headless sake. Could be a T-shirt. And also, Bas mentioned a little bit about the word commitment before you get into it. Is there anything you guys wanted to just talk a little bit about how important that is?
So I was stuck on mute.
Yep.
Yeah, I think, I genuinely mean that, Rodney. I think, there's a tendency around tech to kind of do the next greatest thing, and headless has certainly dominated, I think, the kind of commerce tech roadmap, but also the sales cycle in the last couple of years. And it's great, and it brings many benefits like these kind of evolutions do. But I think the point is just kind of unpicking, like, why does it make sense for you? And by doing that, I think it'll calibrate your mindset and prepare you for the journey you need to go on. And as I said, it's not always easier. And Bas had a good example. Sometimes you'll introduce multiple systems, but if you're clear on the why and there's a strong kind of benefit there, then that will be your North Star of how do I bring my users on the journey? Yeah. How do I explain to them why they're going to use different systems, and not everything is in one system? We've had to do that. And to be very honest, we've got some, user communities who are now very delighted with the outcome. And it's not a problem using multiple systems because they've seen this evolution. Mm-hmm. And they're seeing that the systems do what they need them to do. And along the way, we're constantly revisiting, is there a better way we can deliver that, team member experience as well? And again, because of that flexibility of headless, and I'll call out, Commerce Tools is super flexible from their Merchant Center. We're building more functionality into Merchant Center to prevent that switching to a second system, or to build some tools to automate, repetitive processes that used to take 10 minutes down to a 20-second and 3 clicks.
Yeah, wow. Yep.
And all of a sudden, users start to see this benefit, and they're like, oh, the old e-commerce platform that we used for 10 years, that never changed.
Yeah.
Because it just couldn't. And so, it is that journey, and the benefits continue to, present themselves, and along the way, well past implementation.
Yeah, that's great. We did have a question from Brett Eisen. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly, Brett. You can unmute yourself if you want to ask the question, Brett. Did you want to do that? Are you there, Brett? You can if you want. Otherwise, I'll just...
I'm happy to... I can see, and I'll kind of read it out. Have we swapped out any components yet, or have we stuck with what we had at the start? Great question, Brett. And look, it's pretty recent for us. We started this journey and finished our selection at the start of 2021. So I'm pleased to say we haven't had to swap out any components yet. And we tried to exercise a very much a view of meeting our current and future needs as we went through those platform selections. And Bas kind of illustrated, our primary platform. So fortunately, we haven't had to do that yet. We are absolutely in the process of extending that architecture, and there are, new platforms that we're continuing to integrate, and that's more about continuing to, meet, additional requirements and new opportunities, and that's just part and parcel of, I think, the journey we're on, and we continue to use the same platform evaluation process to make sure we're making robust decisions, because there is an opportunity. Just because you can swap out these components, I wouldn't recommend relying on that just to throw yourself in. So still double check your decisions. I'd still proof of concept and make sure that you can avoid the time and cost of swapping out components for as long as possible. But of course, knowing it's there when the next big thing comes along and you want to jump on board and not do a whole replatforming exercise.
On that, I did get a direct question. I actually got two good direct questions. One was just a statement to say, yep, we are recording and we will hand these over to you post the webinar. But the other one, Bas, was you mentioned scoring when you're choosing platforms. What's some examples of some risk assessment or risk sort of questions that you put into your scoring metrics? Like, can you give an example? That might be something that's probably top of your list.
Yeah, good question. I don't have anything really top of mind right now.
Yep.
But yeah, there's definitely around risk. I think you should think about what is for example, the size of the business you're going to deal with. Do they have any implementation in Australia? Are they used to doing service with businesses that are located in Australia? So those could be risks, because a lot of these platforms either come out of Europe or come from out of the United States, and obviously there's definitely a time zone issue that could occur. We've platforms from all over the globe, and we are often morning calls, evening calls, juggling times. So that is definitely a risk if they're not on the shore here yet.
Yeah.
Rodney, I'll just add to that. And one of the things we did is, I think risk can be a theoretical exercise. You can ask some great questions and score local implementations, local support, size of client base, size of their backing and investment. And those are all great questions. But I'd also say, I think you can turn risk management into a practical exercise. And as Bas said, the proof of concepts were really valuable for us to give equal measure to the tell me and then the show me.
Show me, yeah.
And there's nothing like seeing working software in a very short space of time, doing what you need it to do, and effectively you are actually eliminating that risk. It's not you're minimizing, it does what it says on the box. And when you can go to your developers and say, and tell me how easy it was to bring that to life. And we had a few experiences where, let's say we tried component A.
Yep.
And I came in and Bas's team all looked very stressed and were scratching their heads. And I kind of thought, okay, let's assume that this is probably not the path we want to head down. And so we subbed it out for component B. And 3 days later, I didn't have to look at their faces because they were delighted to kind of show me a working solution. And that's when you start to go, wow, okay, that's actually kind of risk, not just managed, but risk eliminated. Yeah. Because I don't need to wait for sprint 1 to get to this outcome. We could do it in 3 days. And then I'd say to Bas, well, what could we do in 5? Could you prove these use cases to eliminate these risks and uncertainties for us to make a better decision up front?
Yep. And that MVP and that, because visual is different to theoretical, different to reference a documentation thing that's got nothing to do with your business. So yeah, I think it's some great points said. If we had any other questions, please do drop it in. Bas, did you have anything else to add to that, or?
No, I think a very important part that we did with Baby Bunting, and which was great to have that opportunity, was really running through that kind of product selection criteria, working together with the Baby Bunting team to really find out what are the business requirements we're going for, but also what are business values, and do the platforms meet these values as well. And then bringing them all together in an MVP kind of proof of concept, which I think really demonstrated how much you can achieve in very limited amount of time. I think most of our proof of concept were like 5 to 10 days of work, and then we almost had working solutions that we could. They were not ready to go live, but at least it was showing products and allowed to do purchases.
Yeah. Brett's got an additional one. So it's a lot of heavy lifting to transition. What are some major business initiatives you have realized post going live?
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. Look, Brett, at the end of the day, it is a lot of heavy lifting. It is still a re-platforming exercise to make that leap from monolith to composable commerce. One thing I'd kind of note there is, we kind of went into it eyes wide open and knew what the risk points were. And classic one could be SEO migration, which applies to all re-platformings and no different in a composable commerce kind of architecture. So we put those front and center to de-risk them. In terms of business initiatives, look, we've got a lot going on. I can't talk about all of those things, but what we have done is along the way we've continued to extend the architecture to new components that we're introducing along the way, and so we have integrated that, and so things like experience management tools, and now kind of shifting to new tag management tools. So it's the architecture is constantly evolving, and then from an experience perspective, that is constantly evolving as well. So one of the things we did is as soon as we went live, we then kind of looked at how the solution was operating and the customer experience and identified some areas that we wanted to optimize. And we've been delivering those over the last few months whilst we work on some more major initiatives in the background. So look, we're seeing the benefits, but it's a journey, and the key benefits are when you can extend that architecture and know that there's no lockout. No idea that we've got on the horizon, we're feeling constrained, or we're sitting there going, gee, I don't know if technically this is going to be possible or at a cost or time that is acceptable. And that's where we were 2 years ago. And really one of the greatest benefits is we can now build a big, dream big around the strategy and know that we're not going to come back to that glass ceiling that constrains great ideas from coming to life.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Actually, probably to finish off on today, and thanks for sharing that, Rod. I also just noticed there's a lot of bees going around on your top. There's Baby Bunting, Blueburra. This is all these bees going around.
That's right. 2 rods, lots of bees.
Yeah, that's it. Meant to be.
Common theme.
Meant to be. I don't know if you got that dad joke. Anyway, all right. So just wanted to just let you know we've got a couple of contacts there. If you wanted to connect directly with Bas or Rod, you probably already connected with one of the two, maybe on LinkedIn. Who knows? We jump on our LinkedIn accounts and realize we've been connected with someone for ages. Do feel free to reach out to Bas on LinkedIn, email, and he's also popped in his phone number. Bas is also happy to catch up for a 15-minute consult or chat if you just wanted to discuss where you are currently with any of your projects, or any of your decision-making process in your requirements phase, or any phases that you might be at the moment. And look, really appreciate you guys joining us today. We will make this available for you. Thanks again, Rod, for your time. Really appreciate it. I know there's a lot going on, especially just starting a new financial year and things like that. And Bas, nice to always see you as well. We look forward to seeing all of you at our next event, hopefully next month, around 4 weeks to 6 weeks time. We'll inform you via LinkedIn. And thanks again, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day. See you guys.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.